Hey everyone, a lot of success or loss in Apex Legends can come strictly from the character you are playing. Playing a difficult legend can stunt your growth and force you to lose out a ton more than playing someone who is more approachable or more suited to what Apex Legends requires. Today we're going to go over 10 of the best beginner legends that are not only easy to use, but are also going to be integral to helping you learn what Apex has to offer, which will make you become better, faster. If you load up Apex for the first time, you gotta select one of those OGs, and my continual recommendation in just making the top 10 is going to be Bloodhound. The Hound is one of those legends that kind of just works. They are a recon legend and have a nice mix of being a tracker to see where people are moving via their passive, and they also have the tactical scan to find out exactly where enemies are. This means you will have a ton more awareness than you would if you are on any other legend. Having more awareness simply means just being able to approach engagements with more knowledge, and when you are just starting out, it can be very hard to understand what is going on and where enemies are. The scans are also going to make team play very simple, as you can't just click that tactical and everyone on the squad is going to benefit from it. The ultimate is also OP for aggressive plays to get that speed boost. The one thing to be aware of as Bloodhound is that if you do become over reliant on doing anything till you have that tactical scan, this can hurt you in the long run. But if you are just starting out, I can't recommend Bloodhound enough. They are going to help you build game sense and be a little bit more aggressive, which I think is very good when you are starting out. Next up is going to be the legend for you fighter pilots out there, and it is Valkyrie. Valkyrie mixes together one of the more unique kits of abilities, as she can fly around with her passive jetpack, shoot some rockets to stun and damage players with the tactical, and then the ultimate is the rotational king to help you and the team move around the map. Valkyrie has seen a lot of nerfs over the past couple years, which doesn't make her a must pick in terms of the overall meta, but for beginners or returning players, the ultimate's rotation capabilities is going to be why she is recommended on my best beginners legends list. The ability to use this ultimate and get that instantaneous high ground, the power position, or just take more fights means a lot of things. One, you can have safer travels during something like ranked, which can be critical. Two, you have the ability to gain more intel via her flying passive of marking enemies. Or three, you can take more fights in pubs, as you can launch up, fly, and then more or less land on anyone that you do see. If you are coming back to the game for the first time in a while, Apex introduced evac towers, which basically allows anyone to deploy a balloon to rotate whenever they want to. This greatly nerfed the need for Valk's ultimate, and it is something that you should consider. They aren't as strong, as you can't go as high and they can be shot out, but they are still pretty incredible. However, even without the ultimate, Valk has one of the better kits for combat, as her passive can greatly help to take unsuspecting angles on enemies, and it will help you clean and finish fights a little bit more smoothly. The previous two legends weren't necessarily the most difficult to use, but our next one absolutely can be considered one of the harder legends to be successful on for a few reasons, and it is Rampart. Even though this kind of sounds like an anti-beginner legend, I'm really trying to give solid recommendations to build your Apex skills, and Rampart no doubt is going to help you learn pacing and timing in fights, both in a defensive and offensive way. First though, her passive gives more ammo and faster reloads with LMGs, which isn't necessarily the biggest deal, but since the L-Star as of the posting of this video is pretty much insane, it definitely has some use cases. The ultimate, however, will help you learn being a little bit more tactical. While everyone thinks of Sheila as this "I'm gonna delete you in a quarter-second" ability, in reality, it's way better off as a type of utility ability, using it to apply pressure during a rotation to help your team, using it to break a doorway when you are stacked on that door to completely obliterate your enemies, or using it to just angle out enemies and be a third-party menace. There's a lot of ways to use the ultimate, but in my opinion, the one you should avoid is close-range fights. As you move more slowly, it can be harder to track enemies, and overall, it makes you very revealed. The third part, and where things start to get really interesting, is going to be her tactical amped walls. Because the amped walls take a couple seconds to deploy, this means you almost need to be understanding where enemies are going to be 2 seconds in the future. If you are pushing, preemptively placing walls down, you need to be able to predict where the enemies are going to be, and having a good understanding of sight lines is so important. This requires you to think creatively and very differently than all the other legends in Apex. Not to mention, you will farm more damage when you do shoot through that upper portion of the wall with a 20% damage boost, and you can use these walls to fortify up a building or trap enemies inside if you are assaulting that building. Rampart is so unique, and I highly recommend her to learn how to play more tactically, creatively, and better all just understand timing. Speed is life. No legend other than Octane gets the lucky 7 spot, as he has some great things going for him. Beyond the measurable and all that performance stuff, Octane for most is one of the more fun legends in the game, as he has the highest pick rate, but not necessarily the best kit. I like to constantly recommend Octane because he is simple. Simplicity means you should be able to focus on gun skill, which in turn should streamline the Apex Legends experience. His passive is a health regen, tactical is a stim that will let you run faster but at the cost of 20 health, and then his ultimate is a pad that you can use to jump on enemy squads to take fights, use it to rotate through some hot areas, or use it just to escape out of bad situations. The ability to stim, sprint, and then have your passive heal you back up is actually pretty awesome because it means you don't need to use as many health heals, which in turn means you can actually be more active in engagements. One warning I will leave you with is that if you do spam the stim more than once, so twice back to back, you are going to be down 40 health, and this in my opinion is a big problem that you should be aware of, and I would not recommend no more than one stim, or maybe even no stimming at all until you absolutely need that speed to breach a gap, or maybe to escape and get away. The other benefit is that since new or returning players are generally less mobile, the extra speed you do get from the stim and pad will greatly help you keep up and take some more chances. In a similar vein as Octane, we do also have Mad Maggie. Maggie gets a fairly high recommendation because her abilities are again very simple, but she will help you learn how to make pushes and apply pressure. Not to mention, Mags is the answer to many defensive legends, which you are going to have to learn how to deal with. Her passive of increased movement speed with shotguns is okay, but it's not going to really change anything. The passive of seeing enemies through walls that you damage is actually great though. This is because her tactical drill will be able to damage enemies through surfaces and thus highlight them for 1 second on the other side, so you will be able to see which direction they are moving, and then you can follow up with some shots right as they do go out of cover. The drill really is just so insane, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's going to be what you use for every engagement where an enemy is behind a rock, behind a door, in a building, and so on. This is going to force them to move or take sizable amount of damage that stacks up quite quickly, and because the drill does come back super fast, you can often open up opportunities to make a big push play. Her ultimate is a wrecking ball that does blow up when it comes in contact with enemies, which will displace, do a little damage, and stun them. This ball also drops speed nodes on the ground, so if you are pushing an enemy from further away, maybe you hit the drill, maybe get some shots, and then you drop that wrecking ball towards them, you'll be able to close that gap a little bit faster than most legends. The big thing is that the wrecking ball will destroy almost any defensive barrier like Newcastle walls, Ramparts walls, Gibraltar Dome Shield, and so on. Definitely don't sleep on Mad Maggie. She's pretty solid if you are looking to make some aggressive plays. As we enter my top 5 legends, be sure to drop a comment down below with what legend you think needs to get buffed the most. We all know it's #BuffMirage, and also don't forget to hop into my community Discord if you ever want to find others to play with. Most of the legends so far have been pretty much mainly about combat, but if you are looking to take a step back and support the team, then I absolutely have to recommend Lifeline. For one, she is already unlocked if you are just starting out. 2, her abilities are so simple but still very useful for the team, which means if you aren't the best shooter, you're still going to be contributing. Her ultimate calls in a care package to get better armors, heals, attachments, and more. Her tactical drops a healing drone that heals everyone in its range, which means you can't keep the team alive and just be a little bit more useful. But her real power more so lies within her passive revive to let you remotely get them up and let you still be active in fights, since that drone is doing all the work. There really is not a lot to say about Lifeline. She's simple, effective, and if you lack skill in either leading the team or shooting your weapon, then she is going to be pretty awesome for you. The one thing that you will have to be aware of though is that you do need to keep up and stick close to the team, so don't wander off and don't fall behind. If you are looking to be slightly more relevant in the meta, or you want to be a little bit more active in combat, then our next pick of Loba is another awesome support legend option. Loba, I would argue, requires even less skill to be useful, as basically all you have to do is place that ultimate black market down and your team is going to reap the rewards of getting more loot. The black market allows teammates to pick up 2 items within its range and get as much ammo as they want or need. This means you can spend less time looting all game long and spend more time doing actual game improvement things like fighting or rotating. This makes her a great pub legend to get more active, but it also makes her a great ranked option, as Loba will be able to keep the team better equipped towards the end of games when positioning or moving around is just not as easy or maybe just not possible at all. In addition to just being better equipped as Loba, you also have some movement with her tactical bracelet. It's going to let you teleport from one spot to another, which isn't the best movement in the game, but it's still very useful. Her passive is kind of forgettable, although for those who struggle with movement, and especially early on in-game off the drop, when you really just don't know where to go, or if you are struggling to get loot, it's going to let you find that high tier loot as it highlights purple and gold items through walls and in loot pills. Loba is going to be my pick for you if you want a good mix of a pub and ranked viability while also being a team player. Before we get to the top 3, I want to include a few honorable mentions which did just miss out on my top 10 beginner legends. The first is is ballistic. I don't think he is overly great, but if you need as much juice as you can get when you are going into a fight, his ultimate is going to help you out quite a bit due to that slung weapon getting fully kitted. Second is going to be Pathfinder. While Pathfinder I think is pretty approachable, you can pick him up and use him pretty well. He is very difficult to really be top tier user of his kit, but his movement is so overpowered when you do get good with him, and he is a blast to use. Finally, and probably the most difficult legend in the game, Crypto is someone I do just want to recommend briefly. If you can learn Crypto, I truly believe you can learn how to play any other legend. So if you want a challenge, and if you want a legend that requires you to do a lot of actions per minute, then he is pretty viable as he mixes in recon with the drone and aggressive plays with his ultimate EMP. So my number 2 and number 1 best beginner legends are not necessarily the easiest, but they provide way too much usefulness as to what Apex needs to not recommend at the top. But if you want the best bang for your buck legend, locking in the number 3 spot is going to be Fuse. This is also my top recommendation for those who need to really learn how to fight and create pressure on enemies. The main thing with Fuse is that he is all about explosives and grenades. Grenades in Apex are actually just so crazy important that I have entire videos dedicated to them, but they are the number 1 way to really change engagements in your favor, and they are everywhere on the ground, meaning everyone has the capability to make these plays. Fuse's passive lets him hold 2 nades, which means he basically gets double the amount of chances to get some big damage. I prefer arc stars as you can't open a fight by slinging an arc star and sticking an enemy player with his passive grenade arm, which again, this passive grenade arm does increase the amount of things you can do with grenades, as you can toggle it on and off, which is also great depending on the situation. If you do run out of grenades, then you still have his tactical knuckle cluster, which will let you deploy a like mini grenade to create openings, as enemies almost always have to move out of that cluster's area of effect or just stop peeking you. His ultimate also will let you create some decent areas of shutdown via the Ring of Fire, although this ability I think isn't the greatest and is easily avoidable. If you want to farm higher damage games, really get into what you need to excel with via grenades, then absolutely pick up Fuse. If you want what in my opinion is one of the top legends for straight up being a team fighter and a combat menace, then Horizon is going to be the legend for you, locking in that number 2 spot. Her tactical lift lets you transport yourself and the team up into the air, which is great for taking high ground in an instant, or you can use it to reset by popping healing items, or just get a lookout as to see as to where enemies are. Her ultimate is the black hole, which will catch enemies off guard if they do get stuck in its radius, and it usually provides just enough distraction to make a difference. Popping a tactical lift, using the black hole while floating up, and then throwing an arc star on that black hole is usually the number 1 play that you can make with her. I think what most don't understand though is that it is her passive that gives her the very slippery feel, and thus it lets you live longer as it has tighter in-air movement, meaning you can breach around corners, and when you are falling from height or off of your tactical lift, you get to slide as you don't get fall fatigue, which again makes you more elusive and just harder to hit. Horizon isn't as good as she used to be, and if you are returning sometime between her season 7 release and now, she has had like a dozen nerfs, but she still remains great as Horizon really mixes together some nice team play and offensive playmaking, and I absolutely think you need to pick her up if you really want to learn all about fighting in Apex. Taking the top spot is a very unique legend, which I don't think many will expect, but when it does come to beginner legends, I am trying to recommend legends who are going to build skills while also performing and not being that difficult to use. Wattson takes this spot for a few reasons. The main reason is being creative in Apex. Anytime you can think outside of the box, which is what Wattson requires through fence placements, then you are going to have a hand up on the other players. Wattson is going to require you to do a fair amount in game, and she isn't the easiest, but she is going to help you learn and understand positioning, where enemies are coming from, where do I need to be to place fences, where can we hold up that gets that best position in ranked, and I can fortify that area with fences and a pylon. There's a lot of answers that she does bring to the table, and the big one is controlling both the micro of your individual engagements and the macro of your entire Apex game. Her ultimate pylon is great to also heal up the team, so if you do want a little support in there, you can use this as well, and of course it is going to stop incoming grenades. Be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. Check out this video if you want more suggestions on which legend to main, and I will see you in the next one. Happy gaming, legends.